Hello there. We're here finally with the Revo slots. The 510 Datsuns have arrived. We had a lot of people that posted pictures and, doing their tuning. But we have a few people that do ask questions about it or that haven't gotten them yet. And I know I've had a few of the guys that I know, ask questions on the live on certain things about the cars. So one thing you want to do really, so these cars will run out of the box. I'm not saying they won't. You can throw them on the track, they'll run, but there's certain things you really should look at before you do it. One of the things is that these cars right here, at least the ones that I've ran into, I'm not saying all of them, but you may be lucky not to have that problem, is you have a lot of body rubbing with the tires. And then also if you look at this car right here, you can see that's a lot of lash. And that is kind of a worrisome thing because that could lead to stripped gears. I mean, they will run. And once these cars start gripping, they get harder on the drivetrain and then they start grabbing more. And then that's a possibility of this becoming an issue because that's a lot of play there. And this is why you should really open the cars and look at them and stuff. And of course, I use the Slot Invasion Revo Slot Guides or the BRM guides. These are excellent guides. Highly recommend it. Then I use the Mazzetti dampening washers, and these are 1.0, and I usually use these in between here, the body post and the screw, obviously, so this way it cushions it and dampens it. You could go half of that, 0.5 if you want to leave the car lower, but I'm going to explain why I kind of lift it up a little. And then I use the 0.5 bushings in between here, which is the brass nut and the washer in between the chassis here to kind of dampen noise, and it does improve handling in my opinion. And of course replace the braid. I just replaced the braid anyway because I'm taking the old one out. And I use with the guide I use the included screw and washer. Now there's one thing you want to notice about these cars that I'm going to show you here. So if I grab this car right here and I push down on the back and I try and move it, you see how it kind of picks up? That's a rub spot right there. That's the tire rubbing and having a problem. See, you can see how you move it and put force down on it, and this chassis is going to move and this body is going to move when it goes down the track. So you're going to have resistance there when the car is running down the track. Now here's an Alpha, and I need to retune this because I have the Gorilla Tape thing, and I prefer using the Mazzetti dampening bushing or washers because I think they're nicer. And this actually has on the post here, I don't know if you can see it, but there are 40,000 axle spacers because I lifted this body because this was the issue with these cars, these Group 2 cars, they drag sometimes. So if you see when I do it to this, how I push it down, how easily it moves, that's basically what you want to do because this car will flex. And of course with the front, you can see how nice that moves, nice and free, and that's letting a lot of resistance, be released there, so the car will flow nice and freely, and it's going to handle better, and it's going to whip around the track faster too. And it's not going to put as much stress on the motor and everything. Now you can see these tires are super soft, and I didn't true these tires. You can see there's a high spot there, and then low spot. These were just ran on the track, and I do need to true these, and you can see the amount of movement I have. And then also you can see the gear lash. The gear lash is perfect right there, and that's really what you want compared to what the Datsun was, which was a lot of gear lash. So you want to keep that in mind. And then with these Alphas, so you guys know, this piece right here will end up touching this gear. So what I do is chop it off, and it'll make a weird sound like plastic, hitting a piece of metal. So if you run into that, you just cut that down with some sprue cutters, or you could, file it down, and that'll keep that from interfering with it, because you can see this moves around. If it does move, it's gonna hit that piece, obviously, and that's one spot there that'll make noise. And then of course I have my Slot Invasion guide. Now when you get these in there, there's one thing you have to do, is that these posts will be real tight, as you can see here, because they're aluminum. What I do is I get myself a piece of a sanding cloth, or this is actually drywall cloth, and then I just kind of sand this down a little to get it just to the point where it's going to slip in the guidepost and move around freely, because when you put these in, they're going to be super tight, and it's going to be, they get stuck, or they get positioned like this. I mean, it doesn't really, it helps with it, with handling, in my opinion, but if you get one that sticks, sometimes it may stick too much and then you'll have a problem with the car. But it seems like the Revos aren't really affecting too much because they have a lot of weight, because they're metal cars, and I think with the weight it just tends to not really affect it too much. But when you have lighter cars like, as an SR, if you get something that gets stuck like that, that will affect it more. But I would insist sanding this down a little and just getting it to where it's going to go in the post and it's going to move nice and easy like this. Stuff on my car. It's going to move easy like that, and that's what you want, because you want to return to center. You want a nice return, so this way the car is swinging nicely and getting in there. So this is kind of like the key points of these cars that I would look into when you get them, and little improvements. If you do want to use the guide that comes with the car, that's fine. This is a deep wood guide, which is perfectly fine if you want to switch to this. Now, the reason why I suggest the slot invasion is because if you do have a Carrera track, one thing about these in the BMW I've noticed, because I put the wood guide on my Carrera track, this bottoms out a little bit and you hear it when it goes around the track. It's pretty noisy, whereas the slot invasion one is not going to do that because it's just a tad bit shorter, which is really perfect. And I mean, this will work fine, perfectly fine, but I would prefer using these. Some cars I have these, some cars I don't, but these right here are really good guides, and it's a great product, and that's why I've been steadily switching over to these. But it's up to your, how would you say, preference, what you want to do. As I get stuff all over the place from the sand and that, let's get going. But again, it's totally up to you. Now I'm going to put this car on there, and you're going to hear how it sounds. And I risk probably stripping the gear a little bit, maybe, but I'm going to go easy. But you're going to hear how this goes around the track and how it sounds. So this way you get an idea, and then you're going to see the difference compared to this one, which this is a lot more easier to move around. And or actually, I could do it with the number 52 car, which I have downstairs. And let me go get that one, and we'll see the difference. You'll see what I'm talking about. So let's head over to the track so I can explain it. All right, here we're at the track. I have the red lane. I have the car that is not tuned, which is this one. You're going to listen to how it sounds when it runs around the track. So this is really important on how noisy it gets when you do it. Now we have no microphone, so you're going to listen the way the car sounds. Now we're going to switch to the car that's tuned, and you're going to hear the difference. Now, you heard both cars. And when you heard this one, you heard like it's kind of like the gears, you hear them like they're very, how would you say, they're not meshing, in my opinion. And I listen for things, and I also watch it, and then you can hear the little stutter of like the car, because this is actually, these wheels are bottoming out and they're contacting against the inside wheel well here of the body. You can see even when I push down how much I can't even move that wheel. So this is the important about tuning these cars, is to make sure that you got clearance, and make sure that the gear mesh is good. And then also you see there's no movement in this chassis, so it's really tight. And it is a ready to run car if you throw it on there, but sooner or later, once you start, these tires start digging in, because they will wear, especially on a plastic track like Carrera, they will start tearing these up because they're really soft, and then you're gonna see rubber on your track. And then when this starts gripping, that gear is going to start stressing more, and then you're going to have more of an issue where it's a possibility where it may strip. Now, again, going to tuning these is fairly simple. It's not really hard. One thing I do recommend is that you do true the tires. If you plan on going urethane, that's fine. Also, urethane is a great substitution if you don't want to use rubber. But you have to true, of course, for urethane, and I suggest you true the front and the rear tires. And then get yourself the slot invasion guide. In my opinion, again, this one I didn't have any slot invasion guides. That's why I went to the wood one. I want to thank Oscar because he sent me some guides, and I really appreciate him doing that. So this way I could kind of, replace some of these. And I will later on replace this guide. But it's just an idea to just show you how to listen to the car, and in how to, it's like a feel and a listening thing is the part of the tuning, because when you hear a car doing something weird, and when you tune these cars and other cars, you'll get that ear, that experience, and you'll get that ear to where, hey, something's not right. We need to go investigate. With these cars, the first thing you need to do is investigate right away, because obviously this one's going to need tuning. And the one thing I did do with this one in particular, if you see, I've removed the shim. Get this to camera. Compared to this one, I wanted to get this in more, but I just didn't want the shim in there. And then this right here, this part right here, this shim right here, I actually ground this down a little so I could tuck the tire in more, because I wanted the tires tucked in more on this onto the body. And then with the fronts, I also got rid of the little shim as well, so I could pull the wheel in more compared to this one. And this is just my little things I do. Now, other guys may do things differently, so I mean, it's up to you how you make your own judgment call on how the car runs. So all these little things, removing shims and kind of tucking the wheels in more, truing the tires, getting the dampening bushings and the body posts, and then the dampening bushings in between the two pieces, the chassis where they meet here, where the front pan meets with the motor pod chassis. I mean, that's all important, and giving it some movement, it's really helps with the car. And you can see how these two run. Obviously this one runs a lot smoother and a lot quicker. This one struggles a little and kind of has that noise where you can actually hear the tires rubbing against the inner fender in these. And when you run these, you're going to notice when you pull the body out that where it scuffs the paint, you can see where the tires have been contacting it. And that's what you get when you have this type of resistance. And all this resistance, it's going to make it not roll as easy around the track as it should, because these cars are really fast. And I really added no weight on this because there's no really any need to add weight, in my opinion, for my track. Now, if you have a different type of track, more of a road course, and I have Randy's on Area 51 downstairs, which is a plastic track, they do fine. Around here on the road course, they run on the oval, they run real good. I could almost go full throttle around the corner, and I've gotten like 2.3 on this car in particular, which is pretty fast for this oval. And they really handle great, and as you can see, pieces of rubber from these cars, this car right here, and all the other wheel slots I've tuned, because you get pieces of rubber, because it does tear up the tires because they're super soft tires. So, well, that's just it. I wanted to show you that in general. As far as tuning goes, I mean, I've done a tuning video on these cars early on, but what I was using was the black tape. The only difference, it would be the same thing, but what you would want to do is use the dampening bushings from Mazzetti in here, and then use the dampening bushings for the body to lift it up a little. This way it doesn't crouch down so much and hit the top of this when this chassis is moving. So it really helps. You can see how easy that moves like that when I do that, whereas compared to this, you could barely move it. It's just really tough. So that's it for now. I just wanted to show this off and just kind of explain my take on tuning these. It's just a brief thing. It's nothing in depth, but I hope you come away from this and learn something from this. And have any questions, go ahead and ask me. Also on the Corvette, I've done the same thing. I know people have a hard time getting the Corvette tuned. The Corvette, though, I did use a little weight on it because it's a heavier car. It's a longer wheelbase car. You're going to get more fishtailing. And you got to remember that once you got a bigger car, you know, it's just like a land barge. You're going to have to add a weight to it because it's just a larger car compared to these. Group 2 cars are pretty easy to get tamed and you know, tuned. You really don't need any weight, but it all depends on, you know, where you're running your car at. You may add weight to it. It's totally up to you. But in my position where I'm at, I don't need any weight for these cars and on my track. So as always, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this, and you guys take care and have fun racing.